for the thing that you don't understand. You got no fear of the underdog. That's why you will not survive.
Welcome to Talking Tier 1. I'm Tony Scott, joined with Peter Adi in studio. Peter, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks again for having me.
All right, today's show is brought to you by HockeyShot.com. Improve your game on and off the ice. HockeyShot.com is the worldwide leader in hockey training. Whether you're looking for fun and dynamic training equipment or want to learn from the professional players and coaches online, the future of hockey starts now. Visit HockeyShot.com. All right, Peter, let's shoot right at them right now.
Let's put our hockey shot on right now.
And get after them with some 05s all the way down to the U16s, or actually all the way up to the U16s.
All right.
We'll start at the 05s. A lot of hot action at the 05s over the last couple of weeks since we've been on the air. What happened?
As the temperature drops, Tony, the action on the ice is getting hotter.
All right.
Mid-Fairfield in 05 defeated the South Shore Kings 9-0.
And then they tied them.
1-1.
It's a head scratch.
Props to the South Shore Kings for that one.
You got to come and play every game.
Absolutely. The Little Flyers haven't lost since the Rochester October Madness bracket.
Oh, and they've had a couple of good wins since. I think they beat New Jersey.
Yep, 4-1.
All right.
It's a solid win right there.
That's a hot team. Is there a hot team kind of coming up in the 05, someone we don't know about, and who's kind of sneaking up on everybody?
Another East Coast team is sneaking up. The Long Island Royals have won 6 straight. They're a team to keep an eye on for the rest of the season.
That's a deep talent field if you think about it. You got Long Island's got a ton of talent. Obviously, Connecticut's got a lot of talent. North Jersey and Philly's got a ton of talent. There's a lot of talent in that metro area surrounding 4 or 5 hours over there.
Absolutely.
So props to those great players in the 05s. We got to see a lot of them and some great players in New England too, but we won't talk about Ryan Leonard and his escapades, but
Not
they got
yet.
some great players up in New England as well. So, all right, let's move on to the 04s. What's going on in the 04s?
Honey Baked comes out with the Mississauga Border Battle Series title, going 4-1-0 in 5 games.
Can we put a title on that?
We can put an asterisk right there.
How about some air quotes?
We can put
air
quotes on there.
You know, they didn't win every game.
They didn't, and 2 other teams, the Toronto Junior Canadians and the Mid-Fairfield Junior Rangers, ended with a identical 4-1-0 record.
But I think they just had to give it to somebody, and since they
could have been
beat JRC, they got the title. But nevertheless, there was a ton of great hockey players and hockey teams in this event. The big winners were obviously the ones you just mentioned, the ones that went 4-1. But then you got Ottawa Valley Titans. They went undefeated.
They went undefeated,
Like
3-0-2.
Yeah. So they did really well.
You know, getting those ties. Ties are better than losses.
That's
just
right.
barely, but they are.
They did really well. And then there was a ton of good players. So tell me about the good players before we get into the asterisk game, okay? So
one of the kids that stood out was Patrick Thomas of Hamilton.
that's our asterisk game.
That's
right?
our
So
asterisk
the Hamilton
game.
Huskies, talk about trying to figure this out. Hamilton Huskies go 1-3-1. But their one win is over the best team in North America?
Maybe the world?
Maybe the world.
They
Maybe
made that
the world.
one win count.
And they made it count. So props to the Hamilton Huskies for beating Honey Baked. Legit. It wasn't like, they had scored 7 goals on Honey Baked. 7
4.
goals,
Patrick Thomas was responsible for 3 goals and 2 assists
5
in that
points.
game.
So props to you, Patrick Thomas, and my hat's off to you. Some other great 04s, several that we mentioned in our preview and prediction the week before. Jake Rossi from Quebec. He's playing for LSL South. They had a good weekend. He was the leading scorer in the event. One of your favorites is the Honey Baked kid, Frank Nazar. He did really well for Honey Baked. Another guy we mentioned in our thing who had a great tournament in the show 2 years ago was Mick Thompson for JRC. He had a big weekend. And then Aiden Serbone for Mid-Fairfield. He had a good weekend as well.
He did.
These are all the top scorers in the event.
Mid-Fairfield is one of those teams that has a different leading scorer almost every showcase. It's either it's Andon Serboni or it's Frankie D'Ancona. They've got a deep team.
I think the same could be probably said for the junior Canadians too. So JRC, Ethan Best had 6 points this weekend, which is like shocking for how good that kid is and what a developed player he is already at this stage in his game. So
definitely,
it was a good weekend. Shout out to the Super Series people for getting us all the scores. We'll get to that much later. 03s. Got some news on 2 of the top teams in the country. Talk about those 2 teams.
Bell Tire's won their last 5, Tony. Keep an eye on the Bell Tire kids.
This was in their some kind of showcase. We'll get to that in the Boom Roasted. You can't really find a lot of information, but we know that they went 5-0, and we know it was a showcase of some sort because there was a ton of teams, including Minnesota's Gentry, played there as well. They played 5 games. Well, I don't know if they got a trophy or if they played in an event or what, but at the end of the day, they ended up going 5-0, and they're probably the number 2 team in the country behind the Chicago Mission. Why is Chicago Mission number 1 in the country, Peter?
Well, they remain number 1. They're another one of those teams that's got a really, really deep lineup.
Oh yeah, and they've only lost once, and it was to Belle Tire. So I think there's kind of 2 players in the 03 Tier 1s right now. It's those 2, Belle Tire, Chicago Mission. By the time we roll film on the next edition of Talking Tier 1, we will find a 3rd team, an up-and-coming team. We wanted to be Gentry. They had a rough weekend. We wanted to be Penn's Elite. They had kind of a rough weekend. So we know there's 4 or 5 teams out there who want that 3rd spot, but just doesn't seem like anybody wants to grab it yet.
The Tier 1 standings are almost as convoluted as the college football playoff, Tony.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. When I was texting my friends in Toronto about the 04s, I was like, how is it possible that Hamilton beat? And the only response was, they're 12-year-olds. I'm like, that's not good enough. Hamilton should not
higher standards.
Honey baked. It's just too hard to figure out. We're having fun anyway, trying to figure it out. All right, last but not least, we had to go to the big boys, 02s and U16s. What's going on in the 02s?
Chicago Mission took 2 out of 3 from Shattuck and Faribault for the 02s, Tony.
Right in their backyard.
Right in their backyard. Chicago Mission, doesn't matter where they're playing.
Doesn't matter. And and the only loss was bus legs Friday. And then after they got their regular ice legs back.
They took both of them handily.
Yes, they did. That's a good squad. That could be the number 1 team in the country. Despite not winning the Bauer Invite a couple weeks ago. Let's move on to another team that had a great weekend and what we think was an event. We don't know what it was exactly, but something happened in Westchester, Pennsylvania, and we know somebody called 02 Belle Tire
Yeah.
went 4-0.
Oh, yeah, they did.
So they're good. So they're a top 5 team. You saw them in Chicago.
I did.
Tell me about a couple players that you saw from their squad.
One kid that stood out to me in the several games that I've seen them play so far is Mitchell Smith.
He's a defenseman, isn't
He's
he?
a defenseman. Yep. The Belle Tire kids all kind of fit the same mold. None of them are very big, but they can all skate, they can all handle the puck, and they don't make mistakes.
That's a fun team to watch. Fun kind of hockey to watch.
Absolutely.
All right, on to the 16s. Shattuck, still number 1 in the country. They've had an interesting couple weeks heading into the Thanksgiving break. Talk to me a little bit about what those guys did.
Shattuck took a trip down to Dallas.
That was last weekend.
They did, and the trip to the Lone Star State was fruitful for the Sabres as they took a couple of games from the Dallas Stars Elite.
And then the weekend before, they went out to New York City, took the first 2 games against New Jersey Avalanche, and then lost the Sunday tilt to them as well. So they had a good weekend out in New York City. Shout out to the Shattuck people for getting a good friend of mine, Nick Rollwagon, a chance to go out and see his brother Tyler play. Nick is a great kid, fed me some scores, so thank you, Nick, and kept me up to date on those 3 games in New York City. So huge shout out to the Shattuck families helping support the Rollwagon family and their father, Steve.
Connections everywhere.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. All right, let's get on to our Boom Roasted. There's plenty to roast. We've kind of semi-roasted. We've already preheated the oven for our roasting. You want to go first?
It's a crackling hot take right now.
This is going to be a dual roasting. It's a rare roasting. Well, you want to start it and I'll finish it?
My Boom Roasted is going to go out to Tier 1 hockey in general and having their tournaments be darn near impossible to find on the internet. It should not take half a dozen Google searches to find a tournament.
It's called the internet. It's an amazing tool. You can just put the games on a website and provide the information for nerds like us who want to track it and talk about it and get you guys some recognition out there. So
we can do better, Tier 1.
We can do way better. Trust me, we can do better. All right, let's go with the game puck. Since you have the lone puck in studio, why don't you go first?
I have the lone puck. And my game puck is going to go to Patrick Thomas.
Amen.
Of the Hamilton Huskies.
Patrick Thomas.
Single-handedly taking the Huskies 7-4 over Detroit Honey Baked.
Love it. I love
Hats
it.
off to you, Pat.
That's a great take. That's a great take. My take goes to the people at Super Series for providing us doing what they're supposed to do. Put the scores online. Put some score sheets up so we can report on it. We had a great photographer up in Toronto last weekend, and we got a chance to get some photos and write about it all weekend and tweet about it and keep you guys up to date. So huge game puck to the people at Super Series for providing our fans and our readers a chance to talk about Tier 1 hockey. We got no more time left here on Talking Tier 1.
We're probably over time.
We are way over time. We will be back in 2 weeks to talk about more great hockey all over the U.S. For Peter Odney, I'm Tony Scott.
Survive.